Hello there. I'm Andy, the host of the Friendly Podcast Guide. For the past year, I've been introducing moms to different podcasts so that they can figure out which one is a good fit for them. I've loved talking to podcast hosts about their shows and bringing those conversations to my listeners. But I've missed being able to share my own thoughts and podcast lists with all of you, which is why I decided to start making a second episode every week. I'm still trying to figure out what I call these episodes, so if you have any ideas, please DM me or send me an email because I am very open to ideas. Today, I wanted to share 4 things I've learned from making the Friendly Podcast Guide for 1 whole year. The first thing I've learned is podcast people are the best people. Between interviewing fabulous podcast hosts and talking to fellow podcast lovers this year, I have decided that podcast people are the best kind of people. We are always ready to give a podcast recommendation if someone needs one. We're welcoming to new people who join our podcast communities, and as far as I can tell, we are a happy, positive bunch of humans. I am so glad that I get to be part of this podcast-loving community and that I get to help even more people join this awesome group. The second thing I've learned is I can't do any of this without my support system. At the top of that list of support is my partner, Scott. He is my biggest cheerleader and support. I couldn't have done this whole stay-at-home mom/podcaster life without his love and belief in me and my potential. I love you, Scott, and I'm so glad that I get to do life with you. My mom is also a big support. She tells anyone and everyone that I have a podcast and that it's amazing, and that whoever they are, they should definitely check it out. Her confidence in me is something I am so grateful for. My mother-in-law is an awesome part of my support system as well. She listens every Tuesday, and no matter what, she always sends me an encouraging text to let me know that she listened and that I did a great job. There are so many other people that have helped me, from my brothers who still answer the phone when I call them because I need a sounding board for a new idea, to my friends who listen to the show even if they aren't that into podcasts because they want to show their support. Thank you to all of you, named and unnamed, who have made my dream of making a podcast possible. I'm forever grateful to you. Before I tell you about the other things I've learned from making the Friendly Podcast Guide, we're going to take a quick break to talk about my guide to kid podcasts. One of my favorite parenting tools is kid podcasts. I use them when I'm running errands with the kiddos to keep them from complaining the whole time, or when we're going on a road trip and I want the kids to stay entertained so I don't have to hear the dreaded, "Are we there yet?" question a million times. I know that kid podcasts would help you in your life too, which is why I made a guide to kid podcasts. There are 8 different categories ranging from science to mindfulness to audio drama, with at least 3 different podcasts in each category. There are 27 different podcasts in total. I've listened to each of the podcasts on this guide, so I can attest to them being kid-friendly. And I put my email at the bottom of the guide so that if you try a couple with your kids and none of them are a good fit, you can email me and I will personally help you find a kid podcast that works for your littles and you. You can grab this guide at the link in the show notes. Okay, back to what I learned from making FPG for the past year. The third thing I've learned is I can do hard things. Making a podcast isn't easy, and I am so proud of myself for sticking to it and creating something I can be proud of. Being able to bring this podcast into the world is something I've been talking about since I found podcasts more than 5 years ago, and I finally bit the bullet and did it, and I am so happy I did. Last but not least, I've learned that making my podcast is helping my kids. One of my biggest concerns about making a podcast was that my kids would resent that I was doing something that didn't revolve around them. I know how silly that sounds when I say it out loud, but as a stay-at-home mom, that was a worry of mine. But this past year has shown me that doing something I love has helped my kids know that they can follow their dreams and do what they love. My 3-year-old has decided to start her own podcast. Right now, it's mostly her writing things in a notebook I gave her, but I have no doubt that in a couple of years, I'll be helping her produce her own show. Making the Friendly Podcast Guide has been so much fun, and I am so excited to learn and grow even more in year 2. Thanks for listening, and tune in to next week's episode where I'll be giving a list of some of my favorite podcasts by Black creators so that you can celebrate Black History Month through podcasts. Talk to you soon.